Hello, my name is Luke Dyer and this is my Anatomy Assignment 3. Here is a game on Purpose Games that explains and shows where the structure of the heart is and what's in the heart. Here is a diagram on Purpose Games of the air intake, so where air will be taken into and then gaseous exchange will happen in the alveoli. In our lungs there are lobes. So our lungs are divided into lobes. The right lung is divided into the superior lobe, located at the top of the lung, the middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. The middle lobe is in the middle of the inferior lobe and the superior lobe, so the inferior is at the bottom. The left lobe is made up of the superior and inferior, so they've only got two sections in the left lobe. The lobe's job is to support the respiratory system. This is done by the lobes holding air for the reaction of gaseous exchange which takes place in the alveoli. The lobes also rely on each other for backup, so if one lobe fails, the others will take on that lobe's role and support each other, so they all help like a team to keep the respiratory system running smoothly. And the walls of the lobes are divided by connective tissue. Each lung is placed in a separate membrane to decrease the friction on other organs and other parts of the internal body. This membrane is called the pleural membrane, otherwise known as the pleural sac. It also keeps the lungs protected and supported by holding it together and making sure that it doesn't like flop or just go loose. The pleural membrane is wrapped the whole way around the lung to keep it airtight, with a liquid secretion in the middle of the membrane between the two walls. This allows the membrane to slide over each other in a smooth and fluent manner. The lungs, just like many other organs, are located in the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity is from the clavicle all the way down to the diaphragm, and it holds the heart, pulmonary artery, and like I said, the lungs. The thoracic cavity is split into three different parts. Mediastinum, this is where the heart can be found, the trachea, and the great vessels, pulmonary artery, etc. The thoracic cavity is mainly made up of cardiovascular parts of the body, so which means that there's not a lot of muscle apart from the heart. This is because they need the most protection, because if the cardiovascular system part is disturbed, we could die straight away, because there's no air, we won't be getting air, it won't be coming in smoothly, so we won't get oxygen and we'll suffocate. Whereas a muscle can repair, or a bone will repair quite easily or over time. The diaphragm contracts to allow more oxygen to get into the thoracic cavity. This is done by the thoracic cavity becoming wider and the lungs being able to expand more to get more oxygen inside the lungs. Like I said, the lungs are protected by the pleural membrane. One of the layers of the pleural membrane is the visceral pleura. This is the inside layer of the both, so which is closest to the lung. Unlike the outer layer, the parietal pleura, the visceral pleura is insensitive to pain, which means that it will not feel pain. There is a small space in between both layers, and there is a liquid called the pleural liquid. This fluid is there to decrease the risk of friction between the two layers. It also lubricates the organs, making it easier for breathing to happen. On our ribs we have internal and external intercostal muscles. Internal is on the inside of our ribs, and external is on the outside of our ribs. The ribs are the arches of bone that are there to protect the vital organs such as the heart and lungs. The intercostal muscles wrap themselves around the 12 ribs, creating a tight muscle pack that help create a larger area inside the thoracic cavity. This is done by the external and internal muscles contracting alternatively to open up the rib cage. Gaseous exchange is the exchange of gases. It takes oxygen to the working muscles and carbon dioxide out of the lungs and breathes back into the air. This is done in the capillaries, which are small blood vessels, which can be found in the alveoli and near the top of the skin. We have two phases in breathing: inspiration or inhalation, which is where we breathe in. This happens when the diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract to increase the size of the thoracic cavity so you can suck in oxygen and air. And then the exhalation, which is where the diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax to decrease the size of the thoracic cavity, pushing the oxygen out of the lungs and back into the airspace around us. Lung volumes. Lung volume is the amount of air intake that we can do in one breath at resting heart rate. This is also known as tidal volume. There's also vital capacity, which is the maximum air intake after you've breathed out all of your maximum air. So if you breathe out as much as you can and then breathe in as much as you can, that is a vital capacity. Residual volume is the amount of air left in your lungs after you have exhaled. So if you breathe out, the air left in is the residual volume. There are two different ways to control our breathing, which is neural and chemical. Neural control happens when there are two mechanisms controlling the respiration. There is one for voluntary breathing and one for involuntary breathing. Neural pathway for the voluntary breathing is found in the cerebral cortex region of the brain, and the involuntary breathing is found in the medulla oblongata. So basically this means that neural pathways from the brain tell our body to breathe. And then also in the brain there is chemoreceptors that detect the level of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the body. This is how the chemical way of breathing is activated. So as soon as it detects carbon dioxide, our body straight away knows to start breathing to get rid of the carbon dioxide. Then your breathing rate will change to either increase or decrease depending on the amount of carbon dioxide or oxygen it needs in the body. Going on to blood vessels now. The arteriole is a blood vessel that is there to redistribute blood to the capillaries. So from the arteriole it will go into the capillaries. Depending on the amount of oxygen coming into the respiratory system, this is done by changing the diameter to allow the blood flow to increase, also known as vasodilation. This is called vascular shunting. Vascular shunting is when blood is stopped from going to the non-working muscles, such as if you're running, you don't need your stomach to be processing food because you just don't need it for exercise. This is a diagram of the arteriole. As you can see, it is wrapped in smooth muscle and has elastic fibers in it to allow the vascular constriction and vasodilation. So like I said, arterioles flow the blood into the capillaries. The capillaries are the smallest of the blood vessels. It is only 1 cell thick, branching off around the muscle and alveoli. They connect blood vessels to our arteries. The function of the capillaries are to supply the surrounding tissue with nutrients. This reaction is also known as gaseous exchange. They also feed deoxygenated blood from the tissue back into the veins to allow it to go around again, to be pumped around again by the heart, and then get oxygenated blood to be pumped again back into the working muscles to get oxygen to the working muscles. Here you can see the red indicates oxygenated blood going through the arteriole and then branching off into small capillaries, and then gaseous exchange happens in the middle, then goes to the blue side, which is at the bottom, through the venule, going back to the heart to be pumped around again into the same process. Venules, they are a smaller blood vessel than a vein. and it does the opposite of an arterial. Venules take deoxygenated blood away from the capillaries. This is so the blood can get back to the heart and carry on the cycle. Also, a bit like a vein does. As you can see here, venules branch and then go into one. This is called a vein. The vein takes deoxygenated blood away from the venules, and then because it's bigger it can take more and doesn't need as much space in the body. Takes deoxygenated blood back to the heart to be oxygenated again, so it can be sent around the body providing more nutrients so we can keep on working. The vein is made up of 3 layers, two thin inner layers and one slightly thicker outer layer for protection. Veins have valves in them to stop blood flowing back in the wrong direction. As you can see here, there are 3 layers. The purple, the red, and then the yellow. And then there's a valve in the middle to stop blood flow going in the wrong direction. Nutrients and oxygen is transported around the body in the bloodstream. The heart pumps the blood around the body and it goes through blood vessels and down into the capillaries for gaseous exchange to go to our working muscles so it can get oxygen, and then go through the energy systems and then turn into energy so we can keep our muscles working, and then pumped back to the heart so we can gather more nutrients in the blood, and then the same process will happen. So this will be good for someone such as Mo Farah, because he will need a lot of energy when he's doing his 10,000 meter race or his 5,000 meter race, because he'll need that constant supply of nutrients and energy going back to his muscles so he can keep on running without fatigue. Removal of waste products. A waste product is stuff like carbon dioxide. It gets exported by the cardiovascular system. It's done in the opposite way. We are given oxygen. So when we're given oxygen, there's a waste product after the reaction called carbon dioxide, which too much can be poisonous for the body. So we have to get it out by going into the lungs and then breathing it back out. Once oxygen is delivered to the body, the carbon dioxide will also go through the process of gaseous exchange, like I just explained. So again, this will be beneficial for Mo Farah, who was a gold medalist in the 2012 London Olympics, because this way he doesn't get a build-up of carbon dioxide, which means that lactic acid doesn't also build up, which means that he doesn't fatigue as quick, so he can keep on running, and that's how he obviously had the energy to go and win this gold. Thermoregulation. This is how our body tries to keep itself at the same temperature so it doesn't overheat. Our temperature should stay around about 37 degrees Celsius. This is done by 2 different methods. Method 1 is vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Vasoconstriction, this is where the blood vessels decrease in diameter to constrict the amount of blood flow going to our working muscles and the amount of oxygen getting to the muscles. This can occur during exercise to reduce the blood flow to organs such as intestines and the stomach, to stop wasting nutrients and energy so we can focus on our working muscles and get it to them. And then vasodilation is just where the blood vessels will dilate, means that they're increasing in diameter. This allows more blood flow to go to get to the working muscles. Again, this is where it will become in handy for someone like Jessica Ennis, who needs that energy in her races to keep going and then go on to win gold. The second method is where we sweat, which is where our body releases a fluid out of the skin with salt in it, and it tries to cool the body down on the outside, also on the inside. This would be good for someone such as Jessica Ennis in her hurdles races, because she would start to become sweaty and hot, so she might overheat. So sweating would cool her down a little so she can keep on going and not overheat. there are three main functions of the blood. Oxygen transportation. This is where we use this every day. This is where we get oxygen to our